Brethren, good evening and welcome to the 15th talk of our series. It is a pleasure, as always, to see so many of you on the call today. As is normal, I shall start with some housekeeping. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted onto our YouTube page. Therefore, those of you who do not wish to be seen, please feel free to turn your video off. To avoid any disruptions during the talk, could you please ensure that your microphones are kept on mute throughout the talk? Thank you. There will be an open Q&A session after. Usual rules will apply. If you would like to ask a question, please use the hand up icon on Zoom and wait for your name to be called out. You may then mute yourself or unmute yourself, should I say, ask your question, but please do not forget to put yourself on mute again afterwards. Give everyone a chance to ask their question. We request that you keep to one question per person. Once again, we are giving away 2 of our bespoke mugs. All you have to do to be in a chance with winning one of them is to answer the following question. When were the principles and watchwords of the order approximately founded as recorded in the Jewish history of the Bible? Please type your answers in the chat section, and as always, the first 2 correct answers will win. Brethren, it is now my pleasure to introduce you to most worthy brother Andrew Christopher Sweeney, Grand Supreme Ruler of the Order of the Secret Monitor. Andrew, or Andy as he is more affectionately known, started his Masonic journey in 1984 when he was initiated into St. Martin's Lodge number 4011 in the province of Warwickshire, where he was subsequently passed and raised. Andy was elected as Worship Master for the first time in 1990, just after his 33rd birthday, and went on to become Master of the Lodge again in 2000, 2010 and 2019. And he was also elected Master for this current year to culminate with the centenary celebrations of the Lodge. But alas, due to the subsequent lockdown, the celebrations have been put on hold for now. It won't surprise you to know that Andy is a member of all 10 orders administered out of Mark Mason's Hall and around 8 or 9 other Masonic orders. He was appointed Grand Summus of the Ancient and Masonic Order of the Scarlet Cord in 2012, a position he served for 7 years, before handing over the reins to our now Grand Summus, Ian Currans. Andy was declared Grand Supreme Ruler of the Order of the Secret Monitor in November 2017 and has played a pivotal role in ensuring the continued success of the Order over the past few years. In the numerous distinguished positions that Andy has held in his Masonic journey, he has been able to travel far and wide, visiting our districts and lodges overseas, some of which include Spain, the Caribbean, India, and the Far East. What I found most enlightening about Andy is that he leads by example, brethren. All in all, he has been through the chair in various orders that he is part of on over 50 occasions and does not shy away in being hands-on in the ceremonies. Indeed, he is a most wonderful ritualist. So brethren, if you are fortunate enough to have Andy attend one of your meetings, don't hesitate in asking him if you would like to take an active part, with due notice, of course. As well as all his Masonic responsibilities, which normally includes up to about 5 meetings per week, Andy is also a loving husband, father, and entrepreneur. As founder owner of the Best Connection Employment Group, he employs over 1,000 people across 100 branches, which in my eyes means he has either found out how to clone himself or he's indeed a very real-life superhero, as all Brummies tend to be. Grand Supreme Ruler, the virtual mic is yours.
Good evening, brethren. Before I start, I would just like to record my thanks for this to right worthy brother, most worthy brother Peter Glyn Williams, a past Grand Supreme Ruler who sadly passed. Those of you in the order may recognise some of his phraseology, and also for right worthy brother Ryan Williams, the Grand Secretary. Introduction. The Order of the Secret Monitor, which developed from a still more ancient degree, is, in its way, older than Freemasonry itself. It is a society framed upon the principles of self-sacrifice, mutual trust, and watchful brotherly care, of warning in time of danger, solace in time of sorrow, and skillful and effective friendly advice in every circumstance of life. Within craft Freemasonry, we are taught at an early stage that it has for its principles brotherly love, relief, and truth. In no other order in Freemasonry than that of the Order of the Secret Monitor can there be found a greater emphasis on these fundamental Masonic virtues. For the teaching of those principles are a dominant part of its ceremonial and ritual, and enables its members to put them into practice. Biblical history. The biblical roots of the order can be found in the land of Canaan, or Israel, as it is known today, at a time when the children of Israel returned from Egypt to find the country parcelled out in petty kingdoms, whose people regarded the Israelites as interlopers. There was perpetual warfare among the rival tribes for over 200 years, but the Israelites, who were ruled by judges, ultimately had possession of a block of territory from Dan to Beersheba. From this period on, we have the kingdom of Saul, and then ultimately David, the son of Jesse the Bethlehemite. David distinguished himself not only as a warrior, but as a musician. His encounter with Goliath is known to all of us, but his success made Saul jealous, and with the help of Jonathan, was saved from Saul's treachery. Thus, the principles and watchwords of the Order of the Secret Monitor are founded upon the example afforded to us by this selfless friendship between David and Jonathan, as recorded in the Bible. Origins of the order. In the 17th and 18th centuries, speculative Freemasonry gave rise to the invention of many degrees beyond the craft, particularly in Scotland. The early Grand Scottish Rite encompassed degrees from the 4th to the 44th, including the 16th degree of the Order of Brotherly Love, which was taken from Scotland to New York in the late 17th century. Various interpretations were given to it by French and Dutch Freemasons over the next 100 years or so, eventually becoming known as the Secret Monitor or Trading Degree in the 19th century. In 1860, Most Worshipful Brother Robert Morris, a past Grand Master of the Craft Grand Lodge of Kentucky, travelled to Jerusalem seeking traces of Freemasonry from the time of Solomon. Though there were very few Masons living in Palestine, which was then under Turkish rule at the time, Morris did make contact with 4 eminent individuals. His Excellency Nuruddin Effendi, Governor of Jaffa and a member of the Lodge Amity Clement of Paris, Henry Peterman, the Consul of Prussia in Jerusalem, Roger Beardsley, the American Vice Consul, and Brother Charles Warren, the British military engineer and archaeologist, who had been sent to Jerusalem by the Palestine Exploration Fund. He later became the first Worshipful Master of Carter Coronati Lodge number 2076, the premier lodge of Masonic research. By chance, the British naval ship HMS Lord Clyde arrived in Jaffa, the old biblical port of Joppa, for a brief visit. The captain and several of the officers were Freemasons, and Most Worshipful Brother Morris, who was an enthusiastic Secret Monitor Mason, invited them, in company with the 4 Masons he'd already met, to take the degree at a ceremony he held in King Solomon's Quarries on Wednesday, the 13th of May, 1868. The minutes of that meeting, which was the first Masonic ceremony performed in the Holy Land, are now preserved for posterity in the archives of the Craft Grand Lodge of the State of Israel. Interestingly, anyone who received the degree of Secret Monitor at that time was empowered to confer it on any other Master Mason, from birth to modern day. Central to the birth of the order in the British Isles is one Izuka Zachary, an Englishman who served on the federal side as a surgeon in the American Civil War and settled in California, where he took a prominent role in Masonic affairs. A highly acclaimed orthopedic surgeon and physician who had been a trusted friend of President Lincoln, and was the first Grand Master of the Crafts Grand Lodge of California. Some 10 years after adopting California as his home, Zachary decided to return to London in 1875 and set up practice in Brook Street, Mayfair. He quickly made many Masonic contacts and was advanced into the Bon Accord Mark Lodge in 1882. Here he met other brethren who had received the degree of Secret Monitor in various places, among them one Charles Fitzgerald Matier, who had received the signs, etc., from an American brother in 1865. Brother Zachary discussed with Matier and the others he had met the possibility of working the degree of Secret Monitor in England, as a result of which a conclave of the order was formed in May 1887, which ultimately became the Premier Conclave #1. From this step, the Grand Council of the Order was formed, with Brother Zachary as the first Grand Supreme Ruler, an office he held from 1887 until 1894. Zachary and the other founding fathers of the order firmly believed that there was a need for a more intimate tie with the principle that brotherly love is to be the feature that should permeate every word, deed and thought within and without our assemblies, and should be the very touchstone of our practice. They also felt that the single degree ceremony composed by Dutch settlers of Jewish descent, which had been in use throughout many parts of the world since the 17th century, should be revised to include this more meaningful and inspiring purpose. His compassion and eloquence, coupled with the legislative and drafting skills of His Honour Judge Filbury QC, Grand Registrar of the United Grand Lodge of England, made them perfectly suited to undertake the important task of rewriting the ritual of the ceremony of induction, and to be the authors of the new ceremonies for the admission of a Prince of the Order, second degree, and the installation and commissioning ceremonies of a Supreme Ruler, third degree. It is perhaps not surprising that the success of the order under Zachary aroused jealousy and competition. The Grand Council of the Allied Masonic degrees over here and the Sovereign Council of Allied and Christian degrees for America were both concerned. Discussions took place to try and find a way forward, the outcome of which was that the Grand Council of the Allied Masonic degrees took the Order of the Secret Monitor under its wing in 1898. Interestingly, however, this did not signal the end of the Grand Council of the Order of the Secret Monitor, which remained in existence. Some 30 years later, in 1931, the matter was eventually settled when Right Worshipful Brother Napier Clavering, who was the Grand Supreme Ruler of the Order of the Secret Monitor, as well as Grand Master of the Allied Masonic degrees, brokered an agreement which saw the Order of the Secret Monitor become a sovereign body in its own right. An item of interest, those members of the Allied Masonic degrees who possess an old bar of the miniature breast jewels for each degree may find that it also includes the first degree jewel of the Order of the Secret Monitor, known as the hackle. Belief and structure. The Order of the Secret Monitor is non-denominational and open to every member of a regular craft constitution. The rituals and ceremonies generate a deeper understanding of the craft principle of brotherly love and demand a higher level of commitment to their precepts by every brother of David and Jonathan. Every Mason is required to express a belief in his respective God, and all orders of Freemasonry have a special name for that supreme being. In the craft, it is the great architect of the universe. In the Knights Templar, we refer to our heavenly captain. As Royal Ark Mariners, we have the supreme commander of the universe. And in the Order of the Secret Monitor, the supreme being is called the almighty friend of all friends, and sometimes followed with the founder of faithful friendship, the significance of which can only be fully appreciated by its members. Craft masons meet in lodges, but an assembly of secret monitors is held in a conclave. The presiding officer has the title of Supreme Ruler, who represents King David and is seated in the east. He wears the jewel of the order suspended from a yellow and violet collarette, and a sash of the same colours bearing his rank, with the name and number of the conclave beneath. The immediate past Supreme Ruler represents Jonathan. The two other principal officers in a conclave, equivalent to the senior and junior wardens in the craft lodge, are the councillor and guide. The former is situated in the southeast and the latter in the northeast, facing each other. Then come the usual officers of treasurer, secretary and director of ceremonies. Next are four officers known as visiting deacons, about whom I shall say more later. The other officers of a conclave are the assistant director of ceremonies, guarder and sentinel. In the second degree, the titles of some of the officers take on the names of certain biblical characters involved in the story illustrated in that degree. All these officers wear a sash of Medici crimson. Conclave sashes have two interlaced triangles in gilt metal or wire on the frog. Provincial and district grand conclave officers wear empire blue sashes with the name of their province or district, and the office they hold embroidered immediately below in thin gold wire. Beneath this are the two interlaced triangles overlaid with three arrows and the initials DJ, all in gold. Grand conclave officers wear Medici crimson sashes bordered with gold cord, on which is embroidered in gold wire a celestial crown above the wearer's rank. Beneath the crown are again the two interlaced triangles overlaid with the three arrows and the initials DJ, all in gold wire, and the frog being finished with a gold fringe. Provincial, district and grand officers all wear collarettes from which is suspended the jewel of their office. All sashes are worn over the right shoulder and under the left arm. Unique to the Order of the Secret Monitor are the four visiting deacons, whose special duties also distinguish this order from any other in Freemasonry. They are each assigned a portion of the membership and are responsible for communicating with their charges between meetings of the conclave to ensure that all is well. They reflect the sacred nature of their caring role and are seated at the corners of what is designated the holy ground, or Magen David, in a conclave. Magen David refers to the shield of David and the two interlaced triangles thereon. These two interlaced golden triangles, also known as the Seal of Solomon, were traditionally set above the throne of King David in Jerusalem and are said to represent our twofold nature, spiritual and material, which shape our lives and destinies. The arrows are emblematic of man in his uncivilized state, relying on his own resources. Ritual and ceremonial. Our rituals, with their beautiful and inspiring precepts, take us back to the time when the Hebrews, wandering defenselessly in the wilderness, forged one bond or another for mutual protection and support. Indeed, much of our ritual is in the very words of the ancient scriptures of the Jews. In the first degree, the candidate is inducted as a secret monitor, and the ceremony is based on the friendship between David, father of Solomon, and Jonathan, son of Saul, the first king of Israel. David was a great warrior and a servant of the king, Saul. Saul, however, soon became jealous of David's brilliance and plotted to kill him. Through his friendship with Jonathan, David was informed of the plot and fled to the hills for safety. But in order to keep David informed of developments within the king's court, Jonathan devised a special system of communication upon which the degree embraces and develops. Saul was informed of the association between David and his son and blamed those around him for encouraging it. Saul then embarked on a major search for David, slaughtering many whom he believed to be involved in his concealment, but David triumphed and eventually became the second king of Israel. His friendship with Jonathan remained unbroken until the death of the latter, and this is the main theme of the second degree, in which the candidate is admitted as a prince of the order. The third degree of the order is unique in English Freemasonry in that it is also the ceremony of installation, in which the elected brother installed as the supreme ruler of his conclave. As a part of the ceremony, the newly installed supreme ruler also receives his commission, usually from the provincial grand supreme ruler, which carries the rank of supreme ruler within the order. These ceremonies are very moving, and it is upon the principles exemplified therein that the system of communicating friendship and caring among the members of the order is promoted in a practical way. Conclusion. The story of the enduring friendship that existed between David and Jonathan, a friendship that has become almost proverbial as the ideal to be aimed for. They saved each other's lives on countless occasions and swore a covenant of eternal friendship. The bond that united David and Jonathan and played such a vital part in the lives of all secret monitors is the fact that the covenant was made in the presence of God. And the very purpose of our order is the practical expression of the paramount importance of each individual human being in the sight of God. We are his creatures living in his creation. And the ritual of our induction as brothers of David and Jonathan insists that it is our inescapable duty to reflect in every way we can, as best we can, the concern and love the Almighty Friend of all friends has for all his creatures. The order, however, does not proclaim brotherly love simply in the abstract or as a desirable norm, for at every turn of life, at every crisis of fate, the secret monitor may look, and will not look in vain, to the experienced among his brethren, who have pledged themselves to give him caution, to promote him to good actions, to warn him of his doubtful ones, to offer him skillful and effective advice, solace in time of sorrow, and to exercise watchful brotherly care and concern over him and his family at all times. This is an impressive and moving list of generous undertakings. And while we learn the arts of taciturnity and trust in the craft decrees, the sense of reverence in the royal arch, the blessing of humility in the mark, and the requirements of fearlessness and witness as Knights Templar, it is here, in this order of the secret monitor, in the story of David and Jonathan, in the doings of Eleazar and Abiathar, and not least in the touching and unifying consecration of purpose that comes to all princes of the order, the Freemasons can truly begin to grasp not only the urge to be loving brethren, but to be doers of the word and not hearers only. Today, the Grand Conclave of the Order of the Secret Monitor, or Brotherhood of David and Jonathan in the British Isles and its districts and conclaves overseas, is the mother of all sovereign Grand Conclaves in the world. It has a membership nearing 8,500 brethren and is spread across 33 provinces in England, Wales and Scotland, with 5 districts overseas and 28 unattached conclaves. Together, these testify to the presence of secret monitor masonry under the English Constitution in the United Kingdom, Far East, South Africa, Southern Caribbean, Europe and New Zealand. And with our brethren, I now hand back to Amit.
Andy, thank you very much. Absolutely fascinating, truly informative. A wonderful, wonderful topic. Thank you very much for agreeing to do the talk for us today. We've got some questions now, if you're okay with that. Can we go to George Poulilimos, is it? Sorry if I've pronounced it.
It's Poulimenos. Greece. You forgot to mention Greece when you talked about the countries that OSM is present, and we have two conclaves, one in Athens and one in Zante, number 627, 631, and both of them were consecrated by Andy, so we're very lucky to have them. My question is the following. If I understood correctly, before the formation of the supreme body, the brethren could give the, let's say, confer the degree to others on a one-to-one basis or something like that. Was there a form of meeting, or how did our ancient brethren, let's say, convene? Did they meet at all in special, let's say, gatherings, or was this degree conferred in, let's say, in the context of another chapter or whatever?
I'm not 100% sure of the answer to that, but my belief is that, which was where, in some respects, side degrees got a name, was that originally they were taken outside of a lodge meeting, and then it was done on a personal basis outside of a lodge meeting.
George, does that answer your question somewhat?
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Just waiting for the next one to come through, Andrew. Brethren, if you do wish to ask a question, please please use the hand up icon on Zoom so I can call your name out. Thank you. It's just taking a little while to come through, Andrew. Could we please go next to Jeff Gill? Jeff, hi, welcome.
Hi, good evening. Andrew, good evening. Hi, thanks for a very interesting talk again. Just going back to the very start of your talk, my understanding always was that it came from the Dutch settlers that moved to America, and then Zachary thereby brought it back to England. I'd never appreciated that it was actually part of the Scottish Rite. Is there any information I can research on that, basically?
I'm not sure that anybody's questioning that it originated from Dutch settlers, but like in all things of Masonry, there's lots of different avenues that have been taken, and that probably explains why there is also some reference in the Scottish Rite.
Do those degrees still exist, Andrew, or are they?
I don't know the answer to that, actually, to be honest.
Okay, I can ask Bob Cooper, the curator for the Grand Lodge of Scotland, see if he knows. But thank you, very interesting talk, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Can we next go to Scott Schwartzberg, please?
Yes, thank you for a very enlightening piece of education today. And I'm sure you know, in the United States, the Order of the Secret Monitor is controlled by our allied Masonic degrees, of which our Sovereign Grand Master is here as well. However, there was a proposed additional order in the United States that might have been as a parallel body to the Order of Knights Templar, and it was called the Order of Judas Maccabeeus. There were 2 degrees written for it, and the first one is the Order of David, which is similar but different to the story told in the Order of the Secret Monitor, and it's a failed body. It never actually took hold, but I'm going to attach the ritual for that degree in the chat. And if I can, no, I have to find it in my computer. But that was my comment.
Thank you, Scott. Andy, are you still with us, Andy?
Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. It's just your screen's frozen. Yeah, I think your screen is frozen. I've got a question here from Richard Romain. He's based in both Israel and the UK. Is there OSM in Israel? And if yes, in what language is the ceremony?
From my understanding, there is not an OSM conclave in Israel. I do recall that there was some interest in creating one. Well, it was probably about 20 years ago now, and I think it was during Peter Glynn Williams' time, and it got cancelled. I think because of insurance purposes, insurance costs, should I say, and it didn't take place. But there was. That's as close as it's come, I think, as far as I'm aware. However, if they want one, we'll be willing to come and visit. Ian Currans would be pleased to come along and bring the Scarlet Cord as well.
Thank you. Richard, I hope that answers your question. Next, could we go to Brother Ted in New York, please?
Yes, thank you, sir. And I thank the Grand Master for his lecture. Scott Schwartzberg already answered the question. I was going to ask about the jurisdiction in the U.S., and I knew it was the U.S. AMDs, but there is no other relationship between the English jurisdiction and the U.S.?
No, there was a concordat between them, but there's no,
the AMD.
No jurisdiction from England, from here, the English Constitution with America. No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Brethren, do we have any further questions? I don't see any more hands up on my list here, but I may be missing someone.
Nothing here, mate.
I've got Jeff Glover. Would you like to ask? Brother Jeff Glover? No, doesn't seem to be here. Can we go to Matthew Christmas, please? Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Meet. Thank you, Andy, indeed for your talk. Oh, off you go, Jeff.
The reference earlier to AMD, in about the late 1800s, OSM used to be have a jewel that was appended to the bar of the 4 Allied degrees together with RAM. So there were 6 degrees covered by the Allied. I wondered, Andy, if you'd like to expand on how the separation of OSM from the Allied group came about.
That came about in 1931 when the Grand Supreme Ruler of the OSM was the Grand Master of the Allied, and they came to an agreement that it should be separated out.
Because
the actual details of why that happened, and I'm not sure of.
I was going to say the Allied used to have an OSM jewel on their long bar of 6, but that subsequently disappeared, except for a few antique pieces, which I used to have one. But now the Allied's gone down to 4, and OSM is flourishing and expanding like mad all over the world.
Yes, that's true.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeff. Matthew?
Yes, Andy, thank you for your talk. I was just going to say, this idea that it came from perhaps Dutch people, there's also I mean, I don't know if you've seen it. There's a degree in the Knights Templar priests called Made Free from Herodom, which is interesting because it has quite a lot of reference. There's one version, although not the one they work, that has quite a lot of references to David and to Jonathan, and although it's set later, but it also comes possibly, we think, from Holland and was practiced in Newcastle. So I think the Secret Monitor has survived as the premier sort of degree of that sort, but there are bits of it in other what are today obscure orders, and I wondered if you'd ever seen it work or anything like that. It's a very unusual and quite complicated degree.
In what is now called Eque's Conclave, number 600, was set up when Michael Guest was the Grand Supreme Ruler of the Order, and the purpose of it was to demonstrate certain old ceremonies of the Order of the Secret Monitor. And if I remember correctly, we demonstrated 2 or 3 different ceremonies, and then I think we sort of ran out a little bit of steam having done those ceremonies. But there are lots of them. I mean, it's equally with the Scarlet Cord. The first grade of the Scarlet Cord is, I think, the 8th in the Knight Templar priests. Very similar ceremony. So there's always lots of crossover in a number of different orders, which makes life interesting when you join the other orders.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Excellent. Could we next go to Rob Waldron, please? Hi, Rob.
Hi, mate. Hi, everyone. Yeah, sorry, I can't raise my hand for some strange reason on this. It's, I suppose, not necessarily a loaded question, but Secret Monitor is probably my favourite order that I'm involved with outside the craft. How do you think we can be doing more to raise our interest or raise other brothers' interest in this particular order?
I think there are lots of orders, and there are lots of competition ultimately for people to join different orders. One of the things that I liked about the Secret Monitor when I joined was that firstly you only had to be a Master Mason, and the friendliness was what appealed to me. Ultimately, the biggest way of attracting new members is in any order is by recommendation from other brethren. And whilst certain people think that you shouldn't join other orders until you're a fairly experienced Mason, I don't tend to hold that view. I think joining something like the Secret Monitor, and in particular the Secret Monitor, when you're relatively inexperienced Mason, is a very good step to make, because it shows you in a practical way some of the virtues that are talked about in the other orders are actually demonstrated in this order. And and the size is such that you can actively participate outside of just the conclave at an earlier stage in your Masonic career than you can in some of the other orders, and certainly in the craft.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you, Andrew. Brethren, I don't seem to have any further questions. If you do wish to ask a question, please do raise your hand. If not, we will conclude the meeting very shortly. Andrew, again, on behalf of all of us here, thank you very much for coming on and giving us a wonderful, wonderful talk on the OSM. I know a lot of brethren are messaging privately to say that they've found it very enjoyable. I think you've whet the appetite for you as well.
Thank you.
Right, brethren, before we do conclude, it's only right that I give out the names of the 2 winners today for our question. The answer was 1000 BC, and the 2 quickest off the mark were Parveen Anumolu and Hemant Vyas. So well done to you both. Fantastic. If you could please message me privately with your address details, I'll make sure a cup gets sent to you. Thank you. Right, Andrew, once again, thank you very much. Brethren, thank you all so much for joining the meeting today. It's been an absolute pleasure to see you all. We've got Matthew Roger Christmas next week, and his subject or his talk will be on the progressive orders and how we classify the degrees in terms of similar ideas and themes. So please be sure to catch up with us again next week. Have a good night, a good morning, and a good afternoon wherever you are. Thank you, brethren.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you, Amit.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Amit.
Bye. Pleasure. Thank you.
Bye. Good evening, all.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Amit.
Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you.